the talent show should be a lot of fun. All right, we've taken care of business. Now we're on to the 2025 draft class for the Cleveland Browns. Some might say it was the best draft class in Browns history. That might be a stretch, but it's definitely the best draft class since the rebirth. And I know that's not saying much because we haven't had very good draft classes. But there are a plethora of stars. And we know about the big four, the early guys, but you talk about the quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel still in the mix, Shedeur Sanders likely to be the starter. Like, this is an epic class. Which of all of those guys is most poised, Zach, we'll start with you, to take the biggest jump in his sophomore season?
I think it's Mason Graham. So he looks like a more confident player out there. I was actually watching in between drills, just how he was interacting with his teammates and then running to the next one. And like, as a rookie, you're a robot and you're so focused on being perfect. And he just seemed so much more comfortable and confident. He looks a little bit lighter, certainly a little bit stronger. We hope it's a minor injury right now. We didn't really get an update yesterday on what it is, but it was an easy pick for me, Jay, when we went to last weekend. I was like, okay, just quick throw out who are the top 5 most impressive guys of early Browns camp. He was in the top 3. There's no doubt.
Now,
I thought you could take this question a couple different ways. There were some guys last year who, as rookies in 2025, excelled immediately. Carson Schlesinger, Harold Fanning, Quinshon. So how much of a jump could those guys take from where they ended their rookie season to 2026?
Sure.
And
they're already up the ladder.
They all can still take a jump, and they all should get better as sophomores. But I went a different route. Mason Graham was one of the 2 people I considered. The other being Isaiah Bond. And he was a guy who wasn't on that graphic of the draft class because he ended up being an undrafted free agent. Became an undrafted free agent because of some off-the-field issues, but had he been a draftable guy, would have probably been a day 2 pick. The Browns receiver room, even with the addition of Boston and Casey Concepcion, is relatively weak still. We're banking on a lot of ifs, and Isaiah Bond's a guy who ended his rookie season with a little bit of promise, showed some deep ball ability with Shedeur Sanders, that connection, but was virtually MIA for the first part of the season. I think he's going to be a focal point of this offense. Not the number 1 target by any means, but a guy that on multiple occasions throughout the course of a game, Todd Monken and company are going to dial up some deep shots, find creative ways to get the ball in his hands. I think he has a ton of room to develop into a really quality NFL receiver. I think where he ended 2025 is below where he'll end up starting 26 and where he could end up finishing 26. So if we're looking for the player who can make the biggest jump, considering where he ended last season to where I think he could get to in 2026, I'm actually going with Isaiah Bond.
Okay.
Mason was my answer. He's looked unblockable at times, but rather than duplicate on Zach, I do think you can make cases for other guys. You can make a case for Shedeur, but it's
a good case to be made for Shedeur if you want to go that route.
Yeah, but I would go Quinshon just because he missed all training camp last year. He had no camp. And we all saw the flashes and the bursts, and you know that it's there. So with a little bit better blocking, although I'm not sure how much better this offensive line is going to be, but with a little bit better blocking, a little bit more familiarity, just being in the NFL, having gone through a camp and everything else, I think, as much as he's going to be featured on this offense, when you talk about the struggles that they've had at quarterback, I don't think 1,100, 1,200 yards is unreasonable for him. So I think Mason would be my number 1 answer, but I could easily make a case for Quinshon being right there as well.
I read it draft class, and Bond wasn't part of the draft class. I know he was a rookie.
Technically,
he wasn't drafted.
But do undrafted free agents count as part of the draft class?
Not to me, they don't.
Rookie class.
Rookie class. Okay,
now,
fair.
If you want to say rookie class, I certainly like him as a guy that I think I can see more production from. Hopefully, the wide receivers we took in this draft are productive enough that we don't have to see a whole lot from Isaiah Bond. But I still think he's going to be in there. He's going to get chances. And when he does, I hope he continues to take the top off the defense. He's a guy that I would expect to see a better production from for an entire season. I went exactly where you went, and that's Mason Graham. And I know that you said you didn't want to go that way because you didn't want to repeat, but I really can't make a strong. I just thought Quinshon proved his worth before the injury. And like you, I'm very excited to see what he can do with a full camp and a full season if he stays healthy. I think you're talking about a guy that could go easily over 1,000 yards, and I think he can be the answer to the run problems that this team had last year. So I think that, but he, again, because of where he was, and he already showed me he belongs.
He was good, yeah.
And so did Mason Graham, but I think that he was a guy that was somewhat frustrating because we wanted more from him. Even though he was really good at times, there were other times where he was kind of invisible.
Yeah. Well, he was playing with a broken rib at the
No,
end
I
of
get
the
it.
season,
I
too.
get it.
Yeah.
And I think that probably had something to do with it. But the other guys, like, I just think that Fannin is a Pro Bowl type tight end to me.
Earl's got a case for someone else. So
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
want to hear him make his
Who else
case.
do you have?
So me and Mike had a conversation because the headlines for my thumbnail I got was who goes from good to great. And then, as Mike said, the conversation for biggest jump, I think you can make an argument for Shador. But when it comes to good from great, I could make a case Carson Schlesinger is already a top 5 linebacker and he ain't 5th.
That's why I didn't even consider him.
So
I
when
mean,
you
if
talk
he gets
good-
better, that's great for us. But he was already really good.
Exactly. So based on the first information I got,
Yeah.
good to great, I think Carson Schlesinger has the best opportunity to go from being really, really good to being great. And I think overall, he's the best player from that draft class.
Listen,
Yeah, and I think
there's
that's a
something
fair
to
way
that.
to look at it. I
Yeah.
think there's no doubt that Schlesinger and Fannin had amazing rookie years.
Yeah.
Are they already great players? Probably borderline, but
Yeah.
but it was one, right?
Oh,
You
no,
really
yeah.
want to see him do it 2 years in a row.
And I think, in fairness, that Judkins had a good rookie year, but he wasn't in camp, and it wasn't
Yeah.
great, and it wasn't
No.
all his fault, you know. And
Yeah.
I think Mason Graham, this is very un-Browns like. I think when they made that decision, they said, you know what, this is a low maintenance dude. This is a football first dude, and this guy might not ever be a superstar, but we know that we get him and
We
we
get
plug
something
him
good,
here,
yeah.
and he's going to be a good player for a
Yeah.
long time. And I think that would be a natural progression, year 1 to year 2, year 2 to year 3. If Mason Graham makes a couple of Pro Bowls and plays on great defenses, is it a good pick? Sure, it looks like a good pick. What happens with this offense and Tedero, McMillan, and other ways they
Some
could
of
have
the
gone
tackles, yeah.
leans over it, but like Mason Graham to me is going to be a 6-7 year really high level pro who makes a couple Pro Bowls, and if they ever get things figured out on offense, this is a guy that'll make big plays in big games.
For the Browns to end up having the season that Tyvis and G and some of the other guys that are more optimistic on the Browns want to have, the answer has to be Shador. Like, for the Browns to be as successful as they want to be this season, Shador has to be the answer.
Yeah.
And I do think, just for the sake of discussion, like, you can make the case that Shador only has one way to go, and that's up, considering all the EPA advanced stats that Jason loves and G hates.
I mentioned him like 3 times.
I know, but now it's just your thing.
I mean,
Well,
reality.
he didn't make them up.
I'm not saying I'm
Yeah,
not suggesting
Jason's
I'm not
stats
saying
made
at all.
up.
I'm not suggesting at all he made them up. I'm
He
just
owns
saying
those numbers.
he's now the EPA guy, for better or worse.
Yes, he is. And you're right. From that metric, you can only go up.
It could go
That's
up.
it.
I mean, the quarterback tiers from Mike Sando came out yesterday. He was 35 out of 35. Like,
Yes.
for him to make the leap into, from tier
here's the
4 in the
thing.
group to tier 2, which I'm not saying is likely, but it's not out of the question.
No, I don't think
That
it's out of
is
the
that
question.
is the player the
But it
Browns
can't be from
need to
35
take.
to 32. I mean, it
No,
has
no,
to
no.
be.
And if he does that, he's not the answer to who makes the biggest jump.
No, and
My
you said
point is,
something
if he
earlier.
does, that's the best outcome for the Browns to be successful in 2026.
I would agree. I mean, if he is the answer to that question,
We're in a
that
great
means
spot.
that means the Browns are hovering around 500.
Yeah.
Because anything less than that, and he played to what we expected him to be. But you made a point earlier in the first hour, Zach, that I keep coming back to because both you guys have been hammering this forever. Is the object here to win as many games as you can in 2027 or 2026? And the answer is clearly no.
That's right.
It's not.
They would have added to the quarterback room if they
You
were playing
would have
him.
brought someone in
Yes.
to try to give you a semblance of competitiveness to where maybe you can screw around and go 9-8.
That's right.
But what happens if that is the end result? Well, you're not picking first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. You're picking 16th or 18th, and that doesn't get them to where they need to go down the road. So I think this is one of those exceptions where you go into the season saying, and just being completely honest with yourself, and you're going to trust the process, and they're just going to be what they are. They're going to be a 3 or a 4-win team. They're going to get horrible quarterback play, probably from multiple bad quarterbacks. They're going to finish where they need to finish to best position themselves for 28, 29, new stadium, and beyond. But if you're playing 2026 expecting big things, I think you're going to be very disappointed. And I think, look, just like you said, if you were trying to win, you'd bring in a veteran quarterback that could win games for you.
You weren't here last week when we discussed the extensions to Ward and Delpit. I don't think you were on those particular
No,
shows.
I was not.
Do you think, and I'm just curious, do you think that by them extending Ward and not trading him for future assets, by them extending Delpit, that maybe they don't actually think they're in tank mode?
No, because those aren't. They're great players. Don't get me wrong, and they have a lot to do with the end product. But we had the best defensive player on the planet the last couple of years, and how many wins did we get? You
Not
know,
enough,
I mean,
yeah.
you've in this league, you have to score points to win, more than 7. And I was surprised. I don't know where you guys were on the Ward thing. I was really surprised by that
Yeah,
because he's so close to, how many concussions does he
you
have?
just put a lot of money for him in his 30s.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
You're on the books now and you're committed. And I love Denzel Ward. I love the kid. And I hope that never comes to fruition and that injury thing never. But the results are in and they are what they are. And he's been concussed just, I think, every season. It feels like.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on
last
that.
year he avoided it.
Didn't
I
he have
mean-
a scare in the preseason, but during the regular season?
2 years
never-
ago he had a
Was that 2 years
preseason.
ago?
I mean, I
all
hope that
blends
he
together.
has figured this out and, that he's a little less aggressive leading with his head and he doesn't have these injuries.
Yeah.
But I was surprised by that. And then I was surprised by the Delpit thing too.
Well, and they flirted with Clowney, who's
I know they
33.
did. Yeah.
So I know they're, even if they think it, they're never going to come out and say we're tanking.
No,
And
they
the owner
never will.
came out and said the exact opposite.
Right.
Right. And everybody's kind of like, but we'll see. This offense will be much better to me in week 6, week 7, but we're starting at a low point. And you're right. And I think we need to start with low expectations. And that's not a personal attack on anyone. It's the reality. Your best players on offense are all very young. Your offensive line is completely new. And huge improvement at quarterback would mean like still bottom 3rd quarterback play.
Yeah. Usually when you talk about an entirely remade offensive line and a very young, inexperienced, and
Right.
up and down quarterback and what little experience they have, that's what you get. You get poor results because those are 2 of the most important things to building any football team: the quarterback and how you protect him. And we're not good in either one of them right now. Now we may be in, like you said, week 7, week 8. We may look a lot better. I hope that's the case. But early on, I wouldn't expect much.
When you talk about tanking, when you talk about expectations, I think that they're trying to thread a very difficult needle of being realistic about where they are with trying to not destroy all hope within the fans,
Right.
if that makes sense.
So,
So
for the
it's-
quarterback growth, it's the 3 Ps: play caller, playmakers, protection. Okay. They think they've upgraded the play caller. They know they've upgraded the playmakers. The protection, they think they've stabilized. So is the quarterback good enough? Then there should be a leap.
Should
We'll
be.
see.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree with you, Jay.
Yeah.
That's a delicate dance between
Can you elaborate that a
full-on
little bit?
tanking and keeping the fans engaged.
Well, we've talked about before. Their messaging's kind of been all over the place. And you go from Jimmy saying, swing and a miss, it's going to take time to dig out of that, which I thought was spot on.
Yep.
He had it exactly right. To suddenly 5 wins isn't good enough and this is horrible and we have to get better. And okay, so now
Well, that was the excuse to fire the coach.
yeah, but now it's back to somebody asked Jimmy. I cracked up because somebody asked Jimmy about high expectations, and first thing he said, "Well, I don't know about high expectations.
Temper that.
Improved expectations." So they're and that's why I say they're trying to thread this needle of they're trying to be realistic with where they are and what they probably are going to be, while still trying to provide some hope for fans, because you don't want to. You certainly, and this we're not at 1-31. This isn't
No.
this isn't a winless 0-17.
And we
team.
knew what was going on then.
And I think that it's on August 5th that they're trying to provide some sort of hope for the fans. And again, I think they're on the other side of this. Like I think they're close to pulling the nose up on this thing. But no, I don't believe in the quarterback. So it's hard. That's why I can't get behind
Yeah.
this being a playoff team or making any sort of logical run toward a wild card, because I don't think they have the quarterback in place. But I like what they're doing in other spots. I do think it's closer than not. Like if you tell me in 2027 the Browns are going to be in contention for a wild card spot, yeah, I'll have that discussion. I think that that's very realistic, but I think they're still 1 draft class away. And I don't think that's unreasonable given where they started and given how far I think they've actually done for the most part. There's a lot of things that, like, again, Andrew Berry's the one that set the building on fire with the quarterback decision, and yet that's the one you're trusting to put the flames out and rebuild it. And he's done a good job on a
So
lot
far.
of different spots.
Yeah.
So they've actually they flipped this faster than I thought that they would have. If you'd have told me when they carted Deshaun off the field, like that was like, okay, this is over. This is rock bottom. This is really, 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 really bad. And if you'd have told me that they would have as many pieces in place already that I look at and go, yeah, I like him. Yeah, I like him. Yeah, I like him. I think they've done a pretty nice job of flipping this relatively quickly. It really, like this idea, this is what drives me crazy, is everyone's like, well, the Browns are constantly rebuilding. The Browns are always rebuilding. You always want the Browns to rebuild. I'm like, guys, from 2018 until Deshaun left the field on the card, they were trying to win.
Yes.
They weren't very good at it, but they were trying to win football games. And when Deshaun was driven off the field, everything changed in that moment, and they had to start over. And I give them credit for how far they've gotten this thing as fast as they have. But no, I don't think they're ready yet.
I like everything you just said, and I like the fact that they put, well, we don't know what this year's draft class. If you ask all 32 GMs and head coaches, how do you like your draft class? I'm going to say the same thing. They like these guys so much they took them.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the players that they have today. If we get, and this is a big if because it's hard to do this once, but if he duplicates it and he gets all kinds of hits and home runs in this 26 class, I agree with all of that. But when you build a puzzle, you start where? You start with the corners and the edges.
The perimeter, yeah.
And I like what they've done with the corners and the edges.
Yeah.
But the biggest piece to all of this is still missing. So they may get that border of the puzzle built and snapped in, and it looks really good. But you better get that big piece
Right.
in the middle, and that's the
And I
quarterback.
don't think it's just that. Like, I think in October, we're going to be saying, man, this offensive line still needs a lot of work.
No, I agree with that,
So I
but that's
still
the
think that
biggest
there's-
piece.
yeah.
Everybody knows that that's
Yes.
the biggest piece.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying one more full draft class away. It's not just quarterback. A quarterback, I think, would help drastically.
Yes.
It's not just that. There are other.
But if you get Fano and Brailsford and Austin Barber,
If those guys are hits,
to help hitting-
if Brailsford is a hit, that is
yeah,
huge.
yes.
like then the
Huge.
line looks totally different. You feel more
I'm just
comfortable with the
saying,
young
I think
offensive lineman.
We're going to be sitting here on
Yeah.
Mondays going, man, this offensive line wasn't as great as some people thought that it was. I still
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of work to be done up front.
All right. We're going to take a break. Zach's released. You are off to Browns camp.
I'm headed.
Thanks for stopping in. We appreciate it. After the break, we're going to talk about the Guardians, who dropped yet another game yesterday to the New York Mets. They are in a funk. They are in a losing spell. But we're going to talk about the new guys and which of the 4 trade deadline acquisitions will have the biggest impact on this team the rest of the way. Stay with us.